Lemuel will start tonight's meeting with the presentation of Shenandoah 2045. This is what hopefully Shenandoah County will look like in 2045. And you might think that's a long ways out, but I don't believe it's too far out because the way time's flying, we'll be there before you know it.
Thank you, Chairman. When crafting a speech or creating a story arc audience, one of the things that you're sort of taught in public speaking is tell the audience what you're going to tell them what you tell them what you told them. So I'm going to start with the fact that we've worked extremely hard and are extremely proud over the course of the last 5 years to create a new comprehensive plan for Shenandoah County. We've met with thousands of people, held hundreds of meetings, both large and small, at libraries, fire halls, community churches. We had an online survey open for over 2 years. We've been on monthly radio shows, held open office hours, met monthly for the ultimate goal to ensure that this plan represents all citizens of Shenandoah County and creates opportunities for both growth and development while ensuring sort of the rich history of Shenandoah County and that the productive soils are protected for years to come. Some of you have asked, how do we know what's in the plan? We've created with CAC a 280-page document that outlines specifics on how we get there, and that looks like this. We have chapters, so this is the water resources chapter. In that chapter, there's a vision. Under that vision are specific goals, but it's broken down into chapters. So there's two documents. One is the summary plan that we're going to outline here tonight, and then the action plan that was developed by the CAC. It has specific chapters, has a vision statement, and then goals to support that vision statement. As you go through the document, you'll see goals then are broken down into objectives. How specifically are we going to accomplish those things? We've heard a lot about water and the importance for both its value for outdoor recreation, for growth and development in our community, and we've got it outlined in this document. Within each goal and objective are strategies. Those start to get more detailed, start to lay out how we're going to start to accomplish these things. And then the reason the document started out as over 1,100 pages, we reformatted, we were able to work with CAC staff to consolidate, remove certain items, but ultimately the plan looks like this. So it has the strategies and recommended actions that are associated along with stakeholders in a general time frame of how to accomplish certain activities. So the CAC has worked on this plan for the last 5 years. The Citizens Advisory Committee is a 13-person group, 2 citizens from each district, plus a planning commissioner. In November of 2023, this document started out as over 1,100 pages. Now it's around 280. And this is, to identify the challenges and specifically walk through with strategies and actions. The other thing that we've heard a lot about is, did we talk to the right people? Leads me to believe, who exactly are they? We've held specific meetings with economic development focused citizens like the EDC. We've updated water conscious folks throughout the process. We've met with the Battlefield Foundation. We spoke with Chief Williams of Fire Rescue. We spoke with the sheriff. We spoke to department leaders and school leaders. And when I say we did this, yes, staff did this, but oftentimes it was CAC citizens who carried out these meetings, carried out these interviews, and brought all of that information back to us. We held chapter-specific topics here recently where we went through each chapter with concerned citizens, making sure that we reviewed each chapter specifically with them and made sure that they understood what was in it and that we had gotten everything just right. But I think we've ultimately done an incredible job of creating an opportunity for people to contribute to this plan. The plan in our work here, though, can echo those words from Peter Muhlenberg years and years ago. There's a time for us to plan, and now there's a time for us to act.
He said also time to fight.
Well,
that tonight?
Not that. So we're going to plan and act, Dennis, plan and act. But one of the things that's key in that is that, we cannot continue to revel in the analysis paralysis, oftentimes that can come up with a comprehensive plan. We've worked on this for over 5 years, and it's time for us to fulfill these goals within the plan and act on that. Ultimately, the next steps are going to be a public hearing on the comprehensive plan. We'd like it to occur in April, May, or June. And at that time, maybe we will have workshopped this a bit more. And ultimately, this is sort of transitioning from CAC to Planning Commission, and we need to hear from you all too. So with that, I'll turn it over to our fearless leader.
I want to thank you all for coming here tonight. It's been a lot of work over the past 5 years, and I'm not just here as your county planner, but I'm here as a lifelong county resident who was born here in Woodstock and whose family has been here for generations. Back in the 1800s, one of my ancestors had a little printing press in Newmarket called the Henkel Press. They bought a newspaper called The Spirit of Democracy, and they chose to rename that newspaper to the only thing that they thought as being synonymous with it, the Shenandoah Valley. Later became the Shenandoah Valley Herald. So tonight, what we're here to show you is that that statement is still true, that the Shenandoah Valley, that Shenandoah County at the heart of the Shenandoah Valley is synonymous with the spirit of democracy, which is shown by the 5 years of work done by our members at the CAC, as well as staff. And certainly, we can thank all the work that was done by the chair of the CAC, Vito Gentile, who calls himself a come here, but he's been here longer than I've been alive. So before I even start, I want to give a round of applause to the members of the CAC and certainly Vito Gentile for all the work and leadership they provide Worth County. You'll find tonight, after you've received the copies of the letter that Vito provided for us to the public, find table of contents that lays out what is in the plan, what is in the summary document, and an executive summary, so a brief synopsis of what you'll see. As let me kind of touch on, the comprehensive plan is the North Star for our community. It guides us as to who we want to be, looking at who we are and the dreams and desires that we have for who we could be. We have to have a comprehensive plan because the state does require it, but we're not alone. Every other locality around us, as well as our towns, also have comprehensive plans, and there are other types of plans also done, like regional plans or state plans that all tie in and interweave with this. In crafting this plan, the CEC set out with a new vision as to how the plan would be organized. The intention was to take the ideas that were in our land use chapter as well as the implementation chapters of the original plan, from 2005, and be able to say that, how can we get down to a land use perspective and an action perspective on the plan. So you'll find in the action document 11 different chapters, ranging from transportation and housing to economic development and water and agricultural amenities in the community. From each of those chapters, you'll see a vision statement for each chapter, 5 goals for each chapter, and then objectives under each goal, strategies under those, and then finally actions that can be taken for each of those ideas. You might ask, who's going to use this plan? Well, in addition to elected officials, the departments and staff that we were able to talk to and work with, we will also see developers and investors, community organizations, conservation organizations, and the public, all of which in some ways were involved in this process. Because that was the intent from the CAC, was that we didn't want this to be a plan that was crafted by a group of people in a room, but we wanted to talk to the public and listen to them before we even began. And so what did that look like? Well, in 2019, the CAC crafted a community survey, which then went out to the community for vetting as to what questions should be asked, and then finally was released in March of 2020. We all know what happened. So a lot of our plans as to how we were going to do engagement that year drastically changed and gave us the time to reassess as to how we were going to do things. The survey wound up being open for 2 years. We garnered around a little over 900 survey opinions through it. They ranged through different parts of the county. When things started to ease up in the county and we were able to go out to the community and do some in-person engagement, we had 11 district information sessions where planning commission members and board supervisors were invited, as well as members of the CAC, to talk to the public and hear from them what do they love and what do they want to see improved in the county. Following up with that, in 2022, we went out again to the public, this time to festivals and events and also walking tours. Overall, it was a series of 14 different community collaboration sessions that we had that year, and we heard from around 800 people throughout that process. We then worked with the CAC to draft a version of the comprehensive plan, which was released last May, and then took it out to the public for review. And at those review sessions, we also went to the same types of festivals and heard from around 800 people as well last year as well. We also did a series of different types of engagement as well. So we worked with some students to hear what the student age population wants to see in the plan. We had a brunch discussion with business leaders in the community at the Yellow Barn out in Mount Jackson. We also had a series of different meetings on each chapter to hear from each individual who is going to help, each individual and organization who's going to help us with implementation of the plan. So overall, we directly heard from over 2,500 people, and we engaged even thousands more through Facebook, through a monthly radio show that we do, through news articles, and a variety of different other ways that we try to get out to the public to make sure everyone knew that there was a plan and that their voice mattered. So based on that public feedback, what is the vision? Well, the vision for 2045, in short, is that we will be a responsible steward, a unique place to live, a great place to work, and a collaborative community. Overall, that is a rural community and values a diverse workforce and a variety of different housing options in the community while protecting what we value the most, which is that rural character, agricultural character in the landscape. That vision statement was drafted by the members of the Citizens Advisory Committee and brought to the Planning Commission in the fall of 2022. It also went through a public vetting process in 2023. And in addition with that came 10 statements that the CAC felt like were going to be our major issues over the next 20 years. And we want to make sure we address too that this isn't our first plan. And today is actually kind of a historic day in itself. About 50 years ago, on March 1st, 1974, the first comprehensive plan was officially adopted by the Board of Supervisors at that time. They had a draft that went through in November 13th, but the official one was adopted about 50 years ago, nearly to today. After that, in 1991, an additional plan was written to address the issues in the community, and then, which involved a lot of citizen input, and a similar process occurred in 2005, in the early 2000s, with the document we have today. It was adopted in June. So what's the story of Shenandoah County? Well, it all starts, of course, with how our landscape was formed. So, millions of years of different erosion and changes in our landscape brought us the valley that we have today. Route 11 was based on the Great Valley Trail, which was created by the indigenous people who had lived here. In the 17th and 18th centuries, European settlers built communities much like the ones that they had seen in their hometowns. Our communities were markets for the agricultural as well as the forestal businesses that were in the community, including the iron furnaces that were out in the national forest area and some of the railroads that had brought the lumber in from those national forests, such as the deep. But in the early 1900s, that industry collapsed and the county had to rethink what it was going to be. And that was when the national forest had come in. And we also saw a rise in new types of industries in the county in the early 1900s. During the post-World War II era, we start to see more people moving out into the county due to the access provided by the automobile. More people are building different types of recreational amenities such as Bryce or Leisure Point or Deer Rapids. And the community started to understand that they needed to do something. So they came together to form the first comprehensive plan, the first subdivision ordinance, and the first zoning ordinance of the county. In the Great Recession period, the comprehensive plan was also an integral point as the CAC was involved in what was called the Community Planning Project, which helped rethink what types of allowances were allowed in our rural areas in terms of housing. And now today, we are continuing to move towards a period of de-suburbanization and a new beginning, looking at new ways that we can invest our community and use the past as a way to inspire our present. So who is Shenandoah County? Shenandoah County has a rich background, from those first individuals who moved here, those first settlers, to the people who come here today from all parts of the country and other places in the world. And we specifically, looking at Shenandoah County, we've seen our population double since 1970. We also see that most people who do move here tend to be new residents, that we have a diverse group of age ranges, education levels, and backgrounds of people here. And then specifically related to the county, we also know that due to zoning, most potential new housing could occur in our rural areas compared to our towns, our villages, or hamlets. Yeah, this chart here, and you'll see it too later tonight when you're reading through the document. This charts the acreage of farmland in the county since 1910 compared to where houses were built, compared to where they built in the county, where they built in the town, where they built in a sanitary district, a village or hamlet. And you can start to see that red line, which represents houses in the county, starts to really increase and get away from the places that I think the community has said they want to see growth. This is our current zoning map. So it has a variety of different land uses, including some different overlay zones with 6 different types of residential districts. Part 2 here shows that the majority of the county is zoned rural. So about almost 90% of the county is either zoned A1 or C1 due to the national forest and all the agricultural land that is out in the county. So that shows that we have zoned the county for rural land use. And we also can tell from using satellite imagery, the locations of where businesses are according to the state, and our building information, our parcel database, to take a snapshot of what today looks like. And by doing that, we see that most active land uses in the county are rural. And that would be woodland, so any places that are under forest, places that are in the national forest, places that are actively being farmed, meaning that they're getting land use taxation and allowed, and in areas that agricultural are allowed. But after that, we see that the next biggest land use is residential. And that's separate from multi-use, so you might see, apartments over a store or something like that. So the next biggest land use and then rural land use is residential. Is that suburban development currently already dots the county in many places. And when we look at that data I had mentioned about where housing could be allowed based on zoning in our subdivision ordinance, we see that from a total development standpoint, that suburban development in the county would persist. And it could be reduced potentially with some allowances, but overall, what we've heard from the community and from the vision given from the CAC was that we want to look at our towns, our villages, and our hamlets as the places that we can reinvest in, just like our ancestors did. And so what are the villages and hamlets? Our 6 counties, but what are our 12 villages and the variety of different hamlets that are out there? So a village is a collection of houses with at least 2 different types of non-residential or semi-public land uses. So it could be a gas station, it could be a place of worship, it could be a post office, it could be a restaurant. And then a hamlet is just like a village, but it only has one of those. And these places were built by the first settlers here in the community, and our towns originally were spaces like these. There are places where we can have a meeting between inhabitants and strangers, and that is where conversations as to what the community can be like are. And here on the bottom, you can see pictures of Forestville, which is one of our villages. The first picture is from 1940, where you can see the town hall that was in Forestville, as well as their social hall. In 1974, you can see cars parked along the sides of the streets. Assume something must have been going on in the community at that point. And then
Chicken barbecue.
Here in 2024, you can see cars also parked along the streets for the church on Sunday. So what are our 6 big ideas that you can find in the plan? Well, first is that water is love. Second, land is valuable, that our community is actively connected, that we'll invest in the next generation and our workforce with quality education, that we'll pride ourselves on dependable services, that our community believes the past inspires the future. And what you'll find here in this summary document is the 6 big ideas which cross all 11 chapters. And then you'll find concepts which summarize the goals and objectives of the action plan. And then you'll find the proposals which summarize the strategies and actions that you'll find in the larger action plan document. So what is the long range change that the county expects to see? So beyond 2045. So we see areas that are national forest, places that we want to invest in more forest areas, additional public space or preservation, increasing active farms, increasing industry and commerce, investing in those historic building styles that we see in our communities. And this is a transfer development rights map. So this is kind of a easier to understand example of that map. So where are the places that we want to try and help keep rural, keep in agriculture, and places that we want to direct investment to? And so this chart kind of helps explain how we could look at places where we could see potential developments or subdivisions, and then shift those investments into places that we've already had the right infrastructure to accommodate them. This is our future land use map, very similar to that long-range change, which shows conservation areas, which are those areas which are forested, including the national state forests, and places that have contiguous 100-acre or more forests. Agricultural protection, so these are our most productive soils, the places that we want to make sure continue to be farmed for the next generation. We have places of local agriculture where you're going to find your homesteads, the local hobby farmer. You have your commercial industrial areas, your mixed use areas, so our downtowns, so our parks, our schools, and our flood protection overlay district, just like we have today. And that looks like from a built form perspective, so the one you'd seen about the suburban styles of development out in the county, this is really what we're talking about in terms of the form and the style of development the plan calls for, is having those open areas still protected, but also allowing for the right type of investment, the right type of growth to occur in the community and the places that the community has said they want to see it. But the future won't happen overnight. So we wanted to kind of give you all a snapshot of what we're talking about with these villages and hamlets, because it can be hard to understand. So this is Mount Clifton, just 4 miles west of Mount Jackson. The top photo is from 1988, and then the photo below it is from this year. So while the village of Mount Clifton had a long life and an era in itself, most of the community has been abandoned or vacated, but through different types of investment, including looking at sidewalks or other infrastructure that could be brought into these types of communities, we could start to see private individuals take up the initiative on their own to start improving these structures, breathing new life into them, new homes, new businesses, and giving Mount Clifton and every other village and hamlet a second chance in the story of Shenandoah County. And how that fits into the larger comprehensive timeline is that first we need to be able to study and reform the ways that we address issues in the community. And we can do that through looking at the way zoning is written, conducting studies, and preparing ourselves for the larger aspects of it. So from 2030 to 2035, looking at upgrading and enhancing existing capabilities and services in the community. Beyond that, investing and expanding, looking at other needs and desires in the community. And then by 2040, 2045, we'll be nearing the end of the plan. And so we'll want to reassess and reinforce the work that's been done. But beyond that, we'll want to plan and aspire for larger ideas the communities identified or that we hear over the next 20 years for the year 2072. So the first big idea is that water is life. Throughout all of our public engagement, we heard that water was the main concern the community had, be it from having access to water, potable or for recreation purposes, the intrinsic value it brings to our community, the Shenandoah River, northward the Shenandoah River, how it defines our county. And so we wanted to make sure we highlight the importance that the community had listed on how water guides our future. And we can do that through 3 different concepts and 3 different proposals. These aren't in any order. You know, you can kind of choose what's most important for you, but these are the highlights from the plan. So concept 1 is next generation foundation. We're making plans to keep our water clean and safe for everyone. And we can do that through conducting studies, identifying how much water we have, where that water is, and ways that we can better use it. Community action is about involving the citizens of the county and making improvements and supporting them as they want to make improvements in the community. Lasting infrastructure is making sure that we conduct all the studies we need and identify the best investments we can make so that the next generation is set up for success with infrastructure that lasts. For our proposals would be reforming the codes that we have in the county, conducting those studies that we want to do, and making sure that we invest today in the needs and improvements that need to be made. Our second big idea is that land is valuable. Throughout our public engagement, we heard that our productive soils need to be valued for the productive and value that they bring to our agricultural community, but also the value that our downtowns bring. And this map here shows you a value per acre analysis that was helpful during our walking tours in 2022. And with it, we can start to understand that if we divide the assessed value of a property by its total acreage, its footprint, places like the Woodstock Lofts highly outscore a large house that could be found in New Market Gap, for example. And what that means is that that private investment, if directed into the places the public has said, can ultimately make the best return for us, which gets to concept A, maximizing land productivity. So when you're a farmer, you tend to, many of you I don't need to explain it to, but when you're deciding what you're going to do, what you're going to do with an acre of land, you want to know the return you're going to get. And so that'll help you determine what you're going to plant. Well, just like you're determining what you're going to plant on that acre, we should determine what we're going to plant or invest in on an acre of land so we get the best return on it as well. And so it's valuing land and making sure that we get the best investment. Small town feel. Throughout our public engagement, we've heard individuals say that one thing they loved about this area was that they felt like they were part of the community and that our downtowns were lively and welcoming. And we want to make sure that continues. Preserving our landscapes. One of the things that we have heard over and over is the value of Shenandoah County being a rural community with open, working landscapes. We want to make sure those landscapes are still here for the next generation. Proposal 1 would be looking at reforming certain codes in the county and how they impact the small town feel or our open landscapes. We want to invest downtown. We want to protect farmland so that the next generation can also be here and have the ability to farm the same lands that we do. The third big idea is to be actively connected. This idea is about how we can live and work through investments in streets, trails, and a variety of programming for a healthy life. We heard this through multiple different forms of public engagement on how individuals in the community want to be out and active and feel connected in their community. And we can do that through allowing people to have personal freedom in how they choose to move around, be it if they want to drive, walk, bike, or any way they want to move around. They should be able to have options on how they move. We want to be sure to promote a culture of physical activity. So back our ancestors, when they built our town, villages, and hamlets, they walked, biked, or took a horse anywhere. We want to kind of get back to that and make sure it's easy for you to choose however you're going to get around to visit your friends, and that it's part of your everyday life. Community connectivity. So that idea is focused on creating public spaces that bring us closer, from green parks to cozy cafes and lively community centers. And we can do all these things through looking again at our codes, enhancing connections and spaces that are in our community, and supporting the work by groups like our Parks and Recreation staff on community programming. Our fourth big idea is quality education. Again and again, we've heard from the public the desire to make sure that we make the best investments we can in the next generation, the students who are here today. And when we asked individuals in our survey what their key values were in the community, number one was, I think students should have an education that prepares them for a well-paid job or postgraduate education. Right after that, of course, it says, I don't want us to become like Northern Virginia. But that means, of course, we have to grow in the right way and invest in the right ways. And we can do that through addressing an evolving education infrastructure. The county's seen a series of different ways as to how education is delivered, and we need to be prepared for whatever next stage might be. Community opportunities, making sure that there are opportunities for our students to work with businesses and the workforce to have opportunities to improve their education and workforce opportunities. And that ties again into our workforce readiness, making sure that both our students are prepared to enter the workforce and our existing workforce have access to skills and training capabilities so that they are prepared for industry demands and economic trends. We can do this through having quality infrastructure, so making sure that when we do make investments, we will have studied it and made the best investments we can for the next generation. We can do this by looking at investing in the early years of childhood development, by better understanding how we can support our kids when they first enter the education system. And we can look at this at bridging education and the workforce. So again, strengthening those ties from the employers and the students themselves. Our fifth big idea is dependable services. So healthcare, public safety, infrastructure, they're our backbone, making every resident feel supported and valued. In the community survey, we asked folks what they felt like were the desired response or travel times for different services in the community. And the top ones involve, medical rescue, fire protection, and law enforcement. And so we want to make sure that we're addressing the service delivery and investing in those key providers in our community. Concept A is an integrated service delivery system. So looking at making sure all of our systems in the county and all of our partners all work together and speak together. Concept B is health, safety, and security. So making sure that we have robust public safety measures because it's foundational for our community's well-being. Concept C is dependable infrastructure. So again, making sure that we invest in the right infrastructure that is lasting, but also aids in the work that's being done by current staff and individuals in the community. Proposal 1 is to update our current county systems so that they better speak with each other and function with each other, so it frees up some of that valuable staff time. Proposal 2 is to reduce healthcare barriers, looking at partnering with our healthcare agencies in the community, supporting them as they grow, and looking at a variety of options. In future infrastructure, we intend to continuously look at ways that we can better enhance our services and supporting our service providers with the best equipment so that they can be a dependable service for the community. And finally, we'll be a community where the past inspires the future. And what that means is that we cherish our history and we learn from it, but we also recognize that we need to learn from those old lessons and current things that are occurring to better prepare ourselves for the future. And we can do that by studying first and then acting next. So before we have a lot of major decisions we have to make, we want to make sure we have all the data in front of us. And we have done all the studies that we need to better understand where we need to go. But we also want to make sure that our decisions on a daily basis are data-driven. So not just that big decisions are made, but on the smaller decisions, we have more information and ideas as to how this could impact us and what options we have. And concept C is we want to be inspired. Our county's history isn't just stories from the past. It's a treasure chest of lessons for tomorrow, a way for us to look at the past to guide the future. Proposal 1 is to conduct those studies that could help us better understand our place. Proposal 2 would be to integrate data into how those decisions are made, so we better understand what's going on. And proposal 3 is a style guide. So you're using the way our ancestors or other places are built in the community as an inspiration for how the future could look and what we need to do in the present. And I'm gonna end both with this old photo of Forestville and back to what Lemuel said, just a couple blocks down the road from here, 250 years ago, a man stood up in a church and he told his congregation that to everything there is a season. And that night he told them there's a time to pray and a time to fight. But what we're here to say tonight is that there's a time to plan and there's a time to act. And now's the time that we can act and invest in our community so that the next generation is set up for success. So I want to thank all of you for being here tonight and for the Citizens Advisory Committee and everyone else who's been involved in this process.